A very good evening to everyone at ALS. So, today we are at the concluding part of the day long online program for PARWAAZ. PARWAAZ means one who has par or one who can fly. And this is an initiative by ALS which talks about the talent, to highlight the talents of persons with disabilities. So we are ending this day today, and I must congratulate Manoj Krishnan, who's the brain behind everything that ALS does. So we are going to be concluding today's online program PARWAAZ 2021 with a panel discussion on the right to education for children with special needs. And we have four people, eminent people, with us today on the panel. We have Varsha Makhija, who's the principal of the Gateway School of Mumbai. We have Anusha Subramanian, who is a journalist and an adventure sports person and very much into the cause of inclusion. We have Dr. Sunita Wadikar, who is the former principal of Pillai College of Education and Research, which is a teacher training college. And we have Bina Pillai, who is a poet, an author, a person who's been a citizen journalist for CNN, IBN, and also a grandparent of a child with learning disabilities. So let me first introduce all of you to Varsha, and I would like to ask her a few things. So, with a BA in psychology and a master's in clinical psychology, Varsha started her journey as a counselor in Drishti 2006. She was part of the founding team of setting up the Gateway School of Mumbai. And for those who don't know, Gateway School of Mumbai is one of the leading schools for teaching children with learning disabilities. And she's the principal there since 2017. She's in charge of mentoring teachers. She leads the parent support group. She conducts workshops. She's been on the advisory board. She is on the advisory board of two NGOs, and she helps set up policies which helps better, like the policies that we have for rights of education to her children with special needs. So, Varsha, let me start with you. And I'm a teacher trainer, and we go to many schools which say that we are inclusive. And so, what are your views about these schools which say that they are inclusive? Do they meet the needs of children with LD? And what are your views, and what is the way forward?
Thank you, Swasti. Thank you for such a humbling introduction. That's a very interesting question. So, in my opinion, I've been working with children otherwise who are in mainstream schools and there are inclusive settings, and then I work at Gateway, which is a special needs school. I feel like today in 2020, we are at a place where people are very ready and schools have the right intention to have inclusivity. I don't think anymore people want to, schools heads, school program heads, they don't want to not include children with disabilities. I think the issue lies with how much can they support and what are their resources to ensure that this is something that we can do. How well are the teachers trained? How much of this population will come in? We all today know and understand that children with disabilities will take a little bit more from us than our mainstream neurotypical kids. So it's a lot about the intention is right, but a lot is about resources, which is sometimes beyond what teachers can do. So this is more as an organizational issue. So I feel like schools are inclusive and they are a lot more open to inclusive now, but a lot depends upon what their resources is. Also, with children with disabilities, remember that there is a huge spectrum. Some need minimum support, some need a lot more support, some need extreme support as well. So a lot is about what is the child, what is the child's disability, how much support will he need, and what all can the school do to provide that. Do they have the right infrastructure? Do they have the right amount of financial support? As a culture, does the school believe in this? Will other parents and other school teachers be okay with that? Will other children be okay about that? So there are lots of things that we need to keep in mind to consider. But from where I started, when I started in 2006 to 2020, we definitely have come a long way. So when parents are looking at school, I think a good question is for us, for them to ensure and see what is it that the school can provide and what is it that the school cannot provide. So it's always good to have a conversation and think that though I feel like my child might have some disability, where is my child able to fit in best? Would a mainstream school support him? Would a mainstream school with a separate social SEN department support him, or will a special needs school support him? And that becomes an important critical decision to know. Even though I'm at Gateway, we serve a population of special needs. We are also not able to support all special needs, and that's because we have lesser resources. So a lot about it is about where and what can a school give you and what can a school not give you, and parents should know that right at the beginning. Moving forward, I think a lot of things, and I think ma'am you can also share a little bit more about it, but a lot is about teacher training. What happens is we very often feel like children with disabilities is that parents responsibility, or if we handle or if we get in a shadow teacher or a therapist, or if they have an SEN department, then it's only that department's responsibility to look after that child. And I think that's very important. We need to bring in the the mindset over here. That child is not only that parent's responsibility or one teacher's responsibility. A lot of teachers together, be the classroom teacher, be the support teacher, be the therapist, need to work together by just sensitizing the kids, making sure they understand, working with departments to see what is it that we can best do to include this child in a classroom setting. And I think that will only start happening if there's best amount of teacher practice. Teacher training needs to start including a lot of these kind of things.
In
And
fact, one of the
choosing,
things you said, Varsha, about the mindset, we have our second panelist here today who can really talk about
yeah,
that. So let me introduce everyone to Anusha Subramanian. She's an award-winning journalist and a British Chevening scholar. That's wonderful. 160 countries participate in that. So she quit her full-time mainstream journalism to of 2 decades. She's been a journalist for 2 decades. I think you're still right. To pursue her passion for adventure sports, especially trekking and mountaineering. She has combined her skill of writing and adventure training by introducing more people to the outdoors. This is something I'll come back to you. She has given back to the society. She was a part of the people who helped out during the 2013 flash floods in Uttarakhand, the 2014 Kashmir floods, the 2015 Nepal earthquake. She's worked with Bachendri Pal, the Padma Bhushan, and also with Gunj. And in fact, to bring about awareness, this is where I think you will be in sync with what Varsha said. She has actually led the first inclusive climbing expedition of I think there were three blind people and 10 sighted people to Mount Kilimanjaro. She's been a TEDx speaker. I heard your talk. And so, Anusha, let me ask you could you tell us about this expedition and this mindset which Varsha was talking about?
Yeah, so good evening, everybody, and thank you, Swasti, for that lovely introduction. And good evening to all the panelists. The first, so it started for me almost 3 years ago when I first came across blind gentleman who runs an organization that works with persons with disability. And they introduce their persons with disability, of all kinds of disability, and largely people who are blind, totally blind and visually impaired. So somebody who's totally blind is called blind, and somebody who's partially visible can see partially is known as visually impaired. Now, these are certain nuances that I've learned during my course of working with persons with disability. And 3 years ago, it's actually 2015 when I was doing research for a show in BBC, when I came across this gentleman who's the first blind paraglider, and I got excited about that. And as I started speaking to him, I got to know a lot of things that he was doing. And one of the things that he was doing was to introduce persons with disability to the outdoors. And here I was, an able-bodied person, a mountaineer, trekker, and and I'm a chronic asthmatic as well. And I faced a lot of rejections in the outdoors, being an asthmatic. And that was something that struck me, that all of us are capable, and nothing stops any of us from doing anything that is pleasurable. And one of the things is about being in the out.
Hello, Anusha. Yeah, I think there's been a cut in the. We'll just wait for 2 minutes. Okay, I'm sure Anusha will join us back, and she'll give us her opinion about this outdoors and inclusion in it. So our third panelist for today is Dr. Sunita Wadikar. She is the former principal of Pillai College of Education and Research in Chembur. With 32 years of experience, she retired in 2019. She was a member of the Board of Studies. She received the Best Teachers Award from the Higher Education Forum for her outstanding contribution to teaching and education management. So, ma'am, I would like to ask you, with respect to the early years, earlier the NPE 2020 has brought in the early years, restructured the school. Hopefully, it will be a reality soon. We used to have the right to education is given on paper at least from 6 years to 14 years to everybody, also children with special needs, and the NPE 2020 has brought it down, brought the early childhood in. So, how important is are the early years, and could you talk about this part at least for children with special needs?
Hello, everybody. And at the outset, let me thank Manojji for providing this platform and Dr. Swasti for the lovely words. Coming to your question, Swasti, this topic is very close to my heart. You know, especially the first 6 years of development in any child. It's very important. Psychologists have proved this. A lot of research has happened, and they say, give me the first 6 years of the child, and I'll be design his entire life. So, looking at the importance of this phase, uh, after that research, extensive research which is done, the first 6 years of child's development are the most crucial. And that is the most neglected also. The masses are not included in this particular age group. So this phase is considered to be most formative age group, as millions of connections happen in the child's brain. So this is the time when foundations for emotional, physical, cognitive, and social developments are laid down. Children develop critical thinking, creative thinking, problem solving skills, communication skills, and other thinking skills and life skills during this phase of life. So it's very important to provide them with hands on experience and experiential learning. Especially the communication skills are developed during this phase. You know, we fail to understand that. That's why a lot of storybooks, the child should be surrounded with a lot of storybooks, and you have to converse with the child so that he picks up the vocabulary, and maximum vocabulary development happens during this first 6 years. Also, the social development happens during this particular age group. So there should be a lot of family time, to create that belongingness and that we feeling and that bonding with the child. And for this, what the parents are supposed to do, give quality time. I think that's the best gift we can give to our loved ones. Give quality time to these children in this age group. And the second T, first is the quality time T, the second T is the touch. So the cuddling, the hugging, and being with the child, the warmth you extend, that helps in developing good personalities, warm personalities, healthy with a healthy mind. Psychologist Freud has already said most of the patients, adult patient he gets because of the mental health problems, they had a very unhappy childhood. So this is the age group wherein we have to give a lot of importance, spend a lot of time with our children so that they develop healthy self-esteem,
I'm so
positive
sorry.
self-esteem, and also they become good, they develop good positive personalities. Now coming to this NEP, what you said, Swasti, aligning this viewpoint, the National Education Policy 2020 has made certain recommendations. Firstly, they have changed the curricular framework design for school education, because now the pattern is 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. So the first 5 years are very crucial. That has been noted, and the new policy realizes that 85% of the brain develop happens during this age group. Hence, the preschool, the Anganwadis, and all these aspects are given a lot of importance. The policy aims at producing engaged, productive, and contributing citizens for building an equitable, inclusive, and plural society as envisaged by our constitution. Briefly, I'll just say what recommendations are given in this NEP regarding the education for children with special needs. Firstly, the policy aims to recruit special educators, as rightly Varsha also has said that special educators to make teaching more inclusive. Then they have also recommended children with benchmark disabilities will be allowed to opt for homeschooling. Teachers will be trained to identify the special needs. This is very important, identifying the special needs at that age group so that proper intervention can be planned and implemented. And finally, which is very important, National Assessment Center, PARAK, will be formulated to create equitable system of assessment for children with learning disabilities. This is a lopsided education system. We are talking about teaching techniques, innovations, etc., etc. But what happens to the assessment? Because as Albert Einstein has given, everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And that is what we are doing with our children. I think we have to give importance to the assessment aspect, bring in innovations, and use differential assessments depending upon the need. Thank you.
Thank you, Wadikar ma'am. That is exactly, I think, what Anusha was trying to say. We've got her back.
Sorry, I had a power cut.
No issues, no issues. That's India.
So and it's very strange. All these days there wasn't any problem, and today all of a sudden this.
No issues. So let's continue with what you were saying. About in fact, Wadikar ma'am just said. Wadikar ma'am also just said about this differential assessment that we have. And I think it is we might be speaking in the education space, but you were speaking about in the real life space, that we have these preconceived notions that a blind man can't do this, or if you have any disabilities, then you are like not normal and you can't lead a normal life. And I think you're doing a great job in that. So you were telling us about your
so Kilimanjaro, so it started almost in 2015 for me when I got to learn about in this space, and I just being an able-bodied person, and I do so much of outdoors, I could combine my skill set as an able-bodied person and be a partner with a person with disability and just give him the pleasure of being in the outdoors. What was happening was that nobody is confident about taking it upon themselves to be able to handle persons with disability, and that comes with a lot of societal and attitudinal barriers. We've never gone to school with them. We haven't kind of spent enough time with persons with disability. So I started small. I first went on a short trek with a blind who I was a partner guy on a short trek, which is when I learned the little nuances of how to handle them in the outdoors. I've actually over a period of time then got wheelchair bound persons to do wall climbing. Obviously we've taken safety measures by putting on harnesses, and how do you handle somebody when somebody is climbing a wall. They have to use their entire upper body because their limbs aren't functional. So how do you do that? So I've done that as well. And Kilimanjaro, actually I was wanting to build more awareness, and that's how the idea came. And a filmmaker friend said, if you're doing this, why not we shoot it? So I said, we'll need I was supposed to do it solo. I luckily was able to get two blind guys from India. They were also into adventure. One of them runs an organization that actually promotes adventure sports among persons with disability alongside able-bodied people. So we always go together, because it's also very necessary that able-bodied and persons with disability come together and communicate with each other, to understand each other, to be able to have a pleasurable trip in the outdoors. So in Kilimanjaro, so there were two blind guys, one from and three of them. One of them was from Israel. He was all three of them were totally blind, and I had we were three guides from India. Trained guides in mountaineering from India, and I had 6 guides from Africa in Tanzania, the company that I was actually doing this expedition with, which put together the entire organization. And the biggest problem I faced was to raise funds and, talking about the film was basically to talk about awareness. It's called Unseeing and it's on YouTube. I had a lot of apprehension. People threw a lot of apprehension and questions at me when I was actually promoting this entire expedition, saying, why are you doing this? I mean, what, blind people going to the outdoors, this is the attitude. Anyways, they kind of tried to show that anyways they are blind. I mean, big deal, what are they going to figure out? The whole idea being that it's okay. You have one kind of an disability, but their four other senses are absolutely strong. And I would say they're much more capable than any of us able-bodied people put together. Yeah, so when I was raising funds, I had people throwing back at me, you should be working for women empowerment. You're a woman of empowerment and all that, all those talks. But I stuck to the gun saying that, no, I am going to work in this space because this space lacks a lot of awareness. And that is exactly what I'm trying to build. And I'm glad to say that September 13th, 2018, we were on top of Kilimanjaro. We did a lot of practice before that. Because we also had to, what happens in the outdoor is when you're going with persons with disability, you need to understand them as well. And as you go along, you tend to understand them better. And we were going to be spending some time in the mountains. So understanding each other was very important. And hence I did some training sessions here back in India.
Anusha, I would love to, we'll all, I'm sure, go back and watch the movie Unseen.
Yeah, please do.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, so let me bring in the fourth panelist today. We have with us Bina Pillai, who is an alumnus of Lady Shriram College. She's an award-winning poet, author, crusader for social causes. People at ALS know her as she's the associate editor for the Journal of Asian Art, Culture and Literature. She is a member of the jury of ALS and very well known at ALS. So this introduction is for people who are outside ALS. And everybody knows about her novel, Under the Mango Tree, which is doing very, very well right now. But more than that, she is passionate about social causes. She is she's been pushing the cause of dyslexic children, and she was featured as a citizen journalist for CNN IBM. In this regard, she has interviewed a lot of principals and counselors of well-known schools to get a feedback about inclusion. And as a grandparent who has actually faced this for so many years and so well, you've brought up your grandson. Bina, I would like to ask you, you're from the other side. You see, Varsha and Dr. Wadikar are from the side of caregivers. You're on the parent side. You're seeing you're the receiving end. So does this inclusion school work, and are there any facilities for them after 12th? And how does it work from your point of view?
Yeah, actually, when Tarun started going to school, that's the time, I was looking out for schools, special schools, because I thought that he needed some attention and he will not be able to manage in a mainstream school because I thought most of the schools have, the strength is too high. So I thought it's difficult for him. And when I looked around, I felt there are hardly any schools, special schools as such for such children. And so we put him in a mainstream school for lower KG, and also upper KG also he did in a mainstream school. And then I realized that it's not possible because of few reasons. Though inclusion is the best thing that we can have, but the strength of the class is high, around 35 to 40 children, or sometimes even 50 children, students. And these children feel lost in because they need a lot of attention from the teachers, they feel lost. And another thing is also because, they are sensitive to noise. And in such a big classroom, there's so much of noise, whatever they say gets lost out there. And there were other things like some children cannot copy from the board and they need worksheets, which in mainstream schools, it will be difficult for them to make worksheets. Then they need counselors, they need speech, a therapist. Some children, they have difficulty in speech, so they need speech therapists. They need also a educator, special educator. And I thought the funds were not enough in government schools and other schools to give them counselors. And it's not about just one counselor, because it's not enough. There are so many children who have problems, and who are among them, and they all need counseling. So it's about having 2-3 counselors. Then you need special educators, you need therapists, because these children could have a speech problem, they could have other problems where they need physiotherapy, speech therapy. So when I was looking around for everything together, I realized it's not working in a mainstream school. Also because the teachers are not sensitized, and they don't understand. Actually, most of the term, they know what is autism, but there are so many other disabilities that these children have, and which are not actually attended to, and they don't even realize. Because I remember Tarun, he has got normal intelligence, but his problem was, he's very slow, and it's the coordination, the coordination problem. And but the teachers could not understand that. So once, I remember in one school which we had put him, they had asked him to stand near her table and write in words from 1 to 50 or 1 to 20 or whatever. And he was not able to do, because he had a balance problem. As he grows, his balance improved. But at that age, he had that balance problem, and he was not able to stand and write. So the teacher punished him. And I was feeling very sad at the end of it that, poor child, because they don't
I
understand.
can see Varsha smiling, because I think that is exactly what. Well, that is exactly what she had been speaking of from being a special.
So and then I did research. Actually, I approached all the media, and CNN IBN said that I could be a citizen journalist, and then I spoke about this. This was the right to education for these children was the subject which I had spoken on. And at that time, I got the opportunity to go and research, and I went to many schools in Chembur, Ghatkopar, Bandra, Lower Parel, and then I spoke to all the principals. And then I understood the reason was because their lack of funds is there, and also it's the student strength is too much. So according to me, the only way that you can have inclusion in schools is have a separate division for them for every standard, which I don't know it's possible. Only then it will work. Where you have only about 15 children, 10 or 15 children, then you give them all the worksheets and all the, you should have the therapists and everything for them. Then it will work. Otherwise, just putting them in a strength of 40, 50 children, the children are going to get lost and they're going to go backward. So I want to say that at that time he was going to JBCN school in Lower Parel, and which was again far away, because I could not find a school anywhere here, where I can send him in Chembur or close by Ghatkopar or anywhere. And I had to drive him to school 17 kilometers every day sometime, and bring him back again from there. So it was really, strenuous for me. And that's when I like a miracle. Actually, I wrote, in fact, in the Citizen Journalist show, I was saying that wish we had a school here. And Gateway School came up just, stone's throw away.
As an answer to your prayers. Yeah. So, Varsha, going back to what Bina has said, I think she's hit the nail on the head when she says that let's have a special section within the inclusive school. So we'll have the special part of it also, their cares taken care of and be included in. Because, so how do you think technology helps? Because I think technology is a big help for people who are there, who need this. And do you think the pandemic helped actually to push technology to the forefront?
That's an interesting question, Swasti, again, because what happened is when the pandemic happened, we all went crazy. So we had to suddenly, schooling till today was never a concept that could have been done online, because schooling is not only teaching. Schooling is a lot of social interaction. It's a lot of learning of skills. It's a lot of other life skills that kids learn as well. And suddenly we had no other choice, but we had to move it on to an online platform. So it's generally, I know schools struggle, and so did Gateway, because we did have children with special needs, and that changes. Also, what started happening is everyone does not always have technology available. Technology comes with a cost again, and we have a spectrum of kids with a different socioeconomic status as well. So it depended upon, does everyone have a laptop? Does everyone have a good internet connection? Does everyone, and who's going to help them? Because there are the kids with different difficulties, but there are also generally parents who are also working full time. So everyone moved online. So the challenges became quite crazy, and we all had to face that. And it just threw everyone off because parents now suddenly had the children at home. Help
Yeah.
wasn't coming in. There was a lot of online demands that were there. Parents had to have laptops, children had to have laptops. We all almost live in 1 or 2 bedroom houses in Bombay. How is it that you can equip all of this that's going on? But like I always say, I think the city is extremely resilient, and I think people generally problem solve and figure and think what to do. A lot of people had not used tech. Remember, teachers who've also been teaching for years, the younger generation is used to using it, but we have some fantastic older generation teachers who do not know how to use tech, but they had to also explore it. So I think the struggle initially was just a lot more, but as anything else, when we realize that the pandemic is not coming to an end, and this is not anymore, I remember shutting school and saying, we'll see you all in the next academic year, which didn't happen. I haven't seen my kids face to face for over 10 months now, which is something none of us had prepared for. But in a lot of ways, it also came with its advantages where a lot of teachers now had to start trying tech. So we started teaching tech to our teachers. We started teaching tech to a lot of our parents. And then, just as always, I feel like people support each other. A lot of support came in. Tech is a lot more easier for kids because a lot of that is just intuitive, right? How do you use your iPad? How do you use your phone? But for the older generation who's not used it, they needed to learn it. But the openness towards it was amazing. I remember being in a workshop with parents and their kids teaching them how to do it, and it was amazing. It was just amazing to see how that was going on. So we can use and leverage tech a lot, but we just need to start understanding again, like I've been saying, even what all the other people have been saying on this talk is what is our objective? We don't want to use tech just for using tech. We have to understand what is the need and then how do we meet that need by using the right kind of apps. For example, in different apps, we sometimes have a read aloud text. So sometimes what you're saying can be converted to text. Sometimes what the text is can be converted to an audible.
Audio.
So a lot depends upon what is it that the child really needs. Like in Tarun's case, how Bina shared, he's amazing with a lot of things. But if you tell him to keep writing, he might not. That might not be his strength on the board. So it's
Yeah.
important to understand what their strength is, what can they do. But the amount of resources that became available all over the world, I think people just really put things in from all over the world, from some of the best universities, and we suddenly had a boom of information out there. Online courses went free, Audible went free. There were lots of stuff on reading comprehension, spelling, decoding, writing of different levels. People just made everything that they could make and they provided it online. So this today has changed how education is going to be, how we are going to look at education in the future years. So I think that is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I totally agree. As a teacher, I know exactly what you're saying as to how much we had to struggle, but also the resources that we got. Anusha, I like to ask you the next question, which is one thing which I really like this thing which Bina said about having a special section in the school, because it's not only the needs of the children who with special needs, it is also the so-called normal children or normal people who need to, as you said, Anusha, we don't know how to interact with a blind person. Like we don't even know. I would, if I meet somebody who's blind, would even hesitate to, ask him, "Are you blind?" Or we don't know what kind of conversations to have. We don't know how to address people with disabilities. So those who are not disabled also need to be exposed to people with disabilities so that it's normal for us. And I think that's one place where education and the inclusive schools help. So I would like to ask you, Anusha, how does outdoors help children with special needs in their education? Like, because you worked a lot on this, if you could just talk about that.
Yeah, so the outdoors, first and foremost, nature is an equalizer. And, it just lets you be. In the outdoors, everybody is equal, nobody is one above the other. So, what the outdoors does specifically, this is, I think, not only for children with disability or persons with disability, I think it is a must. I think outdoor learning for every child today. I mean, the only 1 year in every year, we go in a year once the children go for a picnic, which is a group activity probably. But I think now the international schools do a lot in terms of, and I think schools in the north have a lot of outdoor education. They take their children for trekking and all of that. But Bombay, I've grown up in Bombay, and I played a sport. I mean, if you don't play a sport, then you're basically just stuck with academics and playing within your apartment building. But outdoor education, when I say outdoor learning, it is about being in the nature. And what I have observed with kids that I have taken, autistic children, I've taken a dyslexic child, I've gone with them on treks, and of course, I trek with the blind, is that one, a nature is an equalizer. Secondly, it builds a lot of confidence. It helps them pick conversation with when you are in a group, which seldom do they get a chance, because many a times I think they've kept aloof. When they go to normal schools, these other kids are not sure how to interact with them. I mean, there could be a few who would. So that sensitization is not there from the normal children's background as well. So what happens in a group activity like a trek or anything that you do in the outdoors is it just builds confidence, and it's a great team activity. So everybody has to be together. They have to make conversation with each other, and that's how they learn. And what happens with persons with disability or children with disabilities, that they then tend to build that confidence in themselves. They pick conversations. They are very observant. They're very observant. They kind of figure out who they're feeling comfortable with, and that is a very important aspect, I think, feeling comfortable. So an example that I can and the best part is, in the outdoors you don't have to conform to any standards. I mean, you can just be the way you are. And apart from building confidence, I think it helps in building interpersonal growth as well. And and that is very important, because what they and learning in the outdoors, you get an immediate result. What a child might learn in a classroom, that child might apply that probably 6 months down the line or 1 year down the line. But what happens in learning in the outdoors, it could be little small nuances, could be just interpersonal skills probably, but it kind of builds a lot of confidence. And that is exactly what a parent told me when her autistic son came with me for a trek. He was in class 9th then, and he's taken to me so well that he remembers every little conversation that we had during that time in that trek. It's almost 2 years now, and he only wants to go into the outdoors. So I wanted to actually understand from her as to, has he ever been in the outdoors like this on a trekking trip or with schools? So she said, yeah, he's gone with other kids, but he's never come back with this experience. And he's very clear now with whom he wants to go. And there were a few other people in my group when I did this trek as well, some other kids who are normal kids. So he's interacted with them, but he's picked and chosen one or two people with whom he had memorable experience as well. And I think that's what the outdoor does to you. It can give you a fantastic experience, or it could just put you off totally. And but to a large extent, I think kids take to the outdoors very well, and I think it's a great leveler. Outdoor learning must be introduced, I think, in every school for, of course, children with disability and for normal children as well. Now, what I'm also trying to work on is to work with adventure therapists, who know the nuances of how to deal with an autistic child, a dyslexic. And in fact, international research, I was just reading up, and international research says that for ADHD, when there's an extreme case of ADHD and children have to be medicated, the outdoors have actually helped reduce that medication. And that's what the environment does. It kind of it can be a positive therapy without any medication. And I think outdoor learning does a lot of, it has a lot of benefits. One needs to just figure out, like it's in every other even in classroom, like she said, you need to understand these needs with regard to various disabilities, and probably you can devise programs that way. I'm trying to work with some adventure therapists in the outdoors and come up with some programs for persons with disability, children with disability, and I'm hoping we'll be able to do. And it's all teamwork. Everybody has to work together. You can't work in silos.
That's
You have to
really
work together.
fascinating. I
Yes.
think I really like this idea. This is something new and novel for us. So, Wadikar ma'am, I'd like to come back to you regarding, as everybody has said, the teacher has to be there to be able to identify and help them out. You yourself have said this. So, as a teacher trainer, as a principal of a teacher training school, how well equipped do you think are teachers with? How well are they being trained or being oriented towards inclusion? And if you could just give us your views on that.
Okay, Swasti, we all know that out of every 10 students you teach, 9 don't want to learn. There'll be just one maybe who's interested in learning. We
You're
teach,
talking
but
about the teachers, ma'am? You're talking about the teachers
no,
who
about the students who don't want to learn. We teach, but do they learn? That is the question. And all
Yeah.
the more for children with special needs. Because some of the reasons which come to my mind are teachers are not really well equipped with the skills and the materials to engage with and teach them effectively. That's the fact. That's the reality. You know, we all have seen at the BA colleges also the the subjects, the pedagogy or the courses which are included. I remember 20 years ago when I was on the revision of the syllabus committee, one topic in psychology was given for inclusive education and for special education. Imagine one unit in the entire paper. Will that suffice? Over the years, now they have modified, realizing the importance of special education and inclusiveness. Now, one full course is dedicated in a B.Ed course. That is, one
Yeah.
full paper is there. But again, if you go through the topics, you feel it's so superficial. As Varsha rightly said, there's a wide spectrum. How do you identify the special need of the child? I don't
Yeah.
think going through that paper is just going to help. It's just examination oriented and theory oriented. So, what the next best thing we can do for effective inclusion of children with special needs? It is important that a general and special educator collaborate to provide a transfer of skills to ensure effective learning for all children with disabilities. Each of these type of teacher has her own skills, specific skills, the set of skills like the subject expert can have subject matter and the classroom management, and the part of the other teacher, that is the special educator, can have her knowledge imparted, use her knowledge with specific disabilities or the special needs identification. So if they both collaborate, I think this will go a long way. As Bina also said, there should be one division. So maybe we have many more teacher educators collaborating with the special educators so that this can be inclusive, can be made more meaningful. Now, the recent one more thing which worries is recent evaluation undertaken by Delhi government. Child Rights Commission says 60% of schools reported zero students with disabilities. Can you
That's
believe that?
they're not
Can you
taking
believe
them.
that?
Yeah.
It only highlights that people with disabilities are set to experience adverse socio-economic outcomes than persons without disabilities. So the new policy fails to specify a roadmap of how it will make sure that education is made accessible to these individuals. That's a big challenge. It also doesn't specify what the change in curriculum would be to make
yeah.
sure that children with special needs don't feel excluded in the extremely competitive environment that Indian schools operate today. So these are the burning issues National education policy appears to be overambitious, fails to recognize that teachers are poorly trained for such assignments. Most Indian schools are grossly understaffed, and policy does not clarify how it plans to create alternate homeschooling mechanisms that are accessible to individuals. So we need to reflect and come out with solutions. Only then inclusiveness can be made effective.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, Wadikar madam. So coming back to you, Bina, uh, I specifically would like to ask, you were talking about school, school, school. So what happens after school? Is there the education after 12th standard one? How's the scene there? Because let's say with God's grace, we manage to educate a child up to class 12, then what happens? And the second part, I'll just add it on to that, is are there any jobs which you feel are suited for such children, which they can take up?
Yeah. Yeah, that is another issue that I'd like to talk on. Uh, because of, again, I have to say, because of Gateway School, Tarun completed 12th successfully, and after that, we were really scared to send him to colleges because we definitely want to send him, but the colleges are all very far off. Most of them are far off, and traveling is again, we're worried about. Also, it's a bigger environment than school, and just what I said about school, the same problem they're going to face in college because they are more mature now, and they are very well aware of whatever their shortcomings are, and it's difficult for them again in that environment. So I feel that we should have vocational courses specially made, tailor made for these children, and where they are professionally trained, also where they're taught life skills, so that they can go directly and they have jobs. They should also provide jobs where there's some quota for them. Recently, I read in the newspaper that railways, they have some quota for these children. But how does a parent come to know about this? There should be some cell where we can approach and we come to know that these are the courses, and these are the jobs available for them. So I thought that is very important. But otherwise, I don't see any. See, schools and colleges are taking these children, and there are many colleges I know where there are special children. But the only problem is the syllabus remains the same. So it's difficult for these children actually to learn that, and it's stress for them to go through that. So I feel that vocational courses are the best option, and also they should be professionally trained, and there should be jobs specially for them. A quota should be given. These are the because I know lemon hotels like
Quotas
lemon
don't help. That's my personal view. I don't think quotas help. So, since we've come to the end of this, I'll quickly ask all of you to put in your last views about this. I think Anusha was ready to speak, so I'll start with Anusha, then go on to Varsha, then Wadikar ma'am and Bina. So, yeah, Anusha.
No, so a lot of my blind friends are placed in good organizations, and they're doing pretty well as well. So, but yeah, the bottom line being that, the whole attitudinal barrier, I think a lot of work needs to be done, and it begins with awareness. I think a lot more awareness is required. I'm not saying it hasn't built up. Yes, there is some level of awareness that is growing, but I think a lot more needs to be done, right from the point of accessibility of spaces to education. All of this encompassed, I think we need a lot of work needs to be done. Also, people, it only will start with discussions like this, because it is only then that we will be able to arrive at doing something about it. Because right now we're all talking in silos, doing things in silos. So I think a lot more awareness to reduce attitudinal barriers. Everybody is equal, everybody is capable. I think that is the point you need to drive home into every head, that we are all we all can do everything that we can do. And education does not need to be only for normal children, it needs to be for one and all. And I think special children, I mean, it's all about devising that new curriculum, sitting with them, sitting with the parents. And what happens largely is we are dependent on one organization, one individual, and then we expect that everything should be fine. I think it has to be a collective effort. Everybody needs to come together on the same page, understand each other's needs, and then sit and probably derive and come back with a solution, I suppose. Same is the case with accessibility. I mean, you just build a ramp in a building. I mean, 60-degree ramp doesn't make sense. You need to have a normal 45-degree ramp that, then, having a step in front of the elevator for whatever joy that is. Even persons without disability will stumble and fall.
Get disabled.
So, yeah. So, and like she
is
mentioned,
this a lift service being provided? Because I feel
no,
like
and
you
like
mentioned
Dr. Sunita mentioned about, these are all textbook knowledge. Probably the architecture schools have one chapter on disability and how design or whatever. I'm not really sure, but I'm assuming it's not given that much of an importance, which
Yeah,
should
I'm
be
sure the person who writes the curriculum for inclusive education is really not a disabled person, because
person.
it's all textbook and theoretical knowledge.
Yeah,
So we
actually
can
spending more time with persons with disability and understanding where they're coming from, I think will solve a lot of issues, I think. And,
yeah, in fact, I would
including
like to point out one experiment, which not experiment, when because I still work in PCR, but I was there when Wadikar ma'am was principal, and she had invited this school for special needs who had come, and basically all they did with our students was they tied up their eyes and made sure they could not hear anything, and then they said, okay, now do this task and do that task. And so although it was not a learning disability, it was a physical disability, and they had to suddenly realize that just walking up and down the stairs, finding your books, sitting on the chair, everything becomes a struggle. So, I think when they came back and spoke to us as teachers, they finally understood what inclusion meant, because the paper became live for them, that experience of it. So, as Anusha said, they need to experience it. Varsha, coming back to you.
In fact, to tell you about Tarun, Bina's grandson Tarun. I mean, I actually build content for a preventive healthcare company, and Bina's grandson Tarun actually interned with me for 2 months now, and we never spoke. We that's where technology played an important role. We only connected with each other through emails. I would just give him a brief of what I wanted him to do research on, and I didn't have a problem at all. I mean, it was very simple, very easy communication, and I'm assuming he enjoyed his work as well.
Yeah,
And
he's cycling because of that. We see him
yeah, because the first blog I gave him to research on was how does cycling benefit you, and and Bina told me that he got so excited about it, and he got a cycle for himself for his birthday. And so those are little things, I mean, that if that could have happened to Tarun, imagine how many kids can do so many other things if we can figure out what their interests.
Quickly with you, how do you see children after they graduate from your school, and what's the scene as a...
Swasti, I understand that we are short on time, so I'm going to make this really quick. I think that the whole definition of inclusion is that all people, regardless of their abilities, disabilities, or any kind of needs, are respected and appreciated as valuable members of the community. And I think this can happen only by two things. One thing is we bring about a mindset change that a child with disability is not only that family's responsibility. It is a community responsibility to look into that. And we owe it to that child and that family that we need to do it. And the second thing is like how Dr. Wadikar, Bina, Anusha, everyone have been sharing, is a lot of awareness. What is needed? The intent is there. The resources are available for everything in the world. But what can we do to bring about awareness as a community? And I think that will bring about a change. Options are opening up. 10 years back, they did not have college options. Today, they have college options. Today, there are workplaces that are taking them in. Marriott, Lemon Tree, Taj are taking in.
Mirchi and
a lot of people are. There are. But what do we do once they go into society is how we all as a community and as a society need to change our mindset. I'll let anyone else on that as well.
Yeah, Dr. Wadikar, 2 minutes, if you could sum up what you feel.
Yeah, I would just like to say we need some more teacher training colleges with this particular special need colleges, so that we get more teachers who are specialized, and we do justice, when they join the school. Also, school should see that they should appoint more teachers with the B.Ed or D.Ed, whatever, in special education, so that, again, so it's a cycle, like, the vicious cycle that most students are supposed to be taking admission in colleges with special need, and also the school should appoint more teachers, so that, we do justice with the whole process of inclusiveness. Thank you. And also,
Okay,
one
so
more thing
Bina,
I
your
wanted to say,
sorry,
just
yes.
one more thing. We have to include the masses. What is happening is only one particular group or section of the society is catered to. So
Yes.
government has to intervene, and when they say free and compulsory education, let it trickle down to the masses. Those children are totally neglected and ignored. So I think that's something serious matter. Again, we try to bring into the mainstream. Thank you.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
Bina, your last few words.
Yeah, the same thing I want to say, that I feel vocational courses have to be there for the children, and they should be professionally trained, because they have strength too. They might have a weakness, but they have strength too, and they can do it just like any other child. And so that opportunity should be given to them. And I think in railways and see Lemon Tree Hotel, they take, just like Varsha said, I know that Mirchi and Mine, they take. There are corporates also taking, but more corporates should come forward and give opportunities to these children, and they can give
Okay,
them
so
training out there, and I'm sure they'll excel just like the other.
And I think sensitization training needs to be there,
Yeah,
even
that's
within
very important.
corporates. It's very important to accept them as normal people and
Yeah.
not treat them as they are, because they have a disability. Just treat them as normal, and they will just respond back, just as normal people do. Because the problem is empathy and sympathy. We can't make a difference between sympathy
Yeah,
and
that
empathy.
is
They
right.
don't need sympathy at all. They're very capable people.
And they're very
And
well
so
aware. Like Tarun
very
is very
well
well
aware.
aware.
They're very well aware of their. I mean, I can tell
Yeah.
you from my observation with kids in the outdoors and children with disability, they are extremely aware, and
Yeah,
they know
Tarun comes and
exactly what
tells
is
me,
happening.
whenever if someone looks at
okay,
him in a different
so
way,
I will
he will immediately
let me
sense
just
that and
sum
will
up.
come and tell.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
let me
please.
sum this up by saying that, as Anusha rightly said, that we need to start conversations, and this has been an initiative in the right direction. A big thank you to Asian Literary Society and PARWAAZ. PARWAAZ has had a whole
And thanks to
talent
Manoj for
Yeah,
organization.
organizing
thank you
this.
so
Yes,
much.
please. Yes, please go to the Facebook page of ALS and check out the various videos which have been put up, which highlights the talent which has been done. I think Gateway also does something like that, because I remember Bina telling me about the art show you do. Anusha
Yeah.
is, of course, a living example of what is happening, and I'm sure teacher training will take up soon. So,
I think
so
Gateway does
with
a
this,
lot. So
we
till 12th, I think children should go to Gateway school. There's no doubt on that.
okay, I'm sure there are many schools. As so, I would like to conclude by saying that we all need to start talking about persons with disabilities. They are not abnormal just because they
Yeah,
are, like, I think this word normal only should not be used, as if we feel that we are
exactly.
normal and you are therefore abnormal. So
Yeah,
everybody is equal. Everybody has different capabilities. Everybody has different something which we all need to respect. And as Varsha said, if the community gets together, like once we consider you our own, then we will definitely go ahead and do something for you. It's just the thing that we think, as Anusha was once saying, that what does a blind person have to go and climb a mountain for? So why not? So
yeah.
these are the questions which come up and which get answered, and I hope such kind of conversations and all continue. So thank you very much, Varsha, Anusha, Wadikar
Thank you,
madam,
Varsha.
Bina,
Thank you,
and
Anusha.
yeah,
Thank you,
Thank
Thank
Varsha,
you,
you,
Bina,
Sunita.
Swasti.
Thank
Thank
Sunita.
you.
you, everyone.
Thank you so
All of
much.
you.
yeah.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Nice
Thank
meeting
you. It
with
was
you and
great,
nice
Bye.
great
talking.
Bye.
Bye
interaction
bye.
with
Bye.
all.
Bye.
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 Yeah.
Thank
Bye
you
bye.
so much.